Hi, and welcome to today's event where we have the pleasure to present Argeo. It says it here, digitizing the ocean space or underwater survey, trying a new company, a new entrant trying to disrupt or transform the ocean survey industry. I don't know whether, Trond, you can say whether you like the word disrupt, but I will go into it. Maybe a little bit unknown for Danish investors. Maybe some have heard about the PGS Subsea 7, the Technip. You will tell me if they are not your competitors, but just to give you kind of an idea what maybe Danish investors know. I think very often thought about as an oil service, but I also think when you introduce the share or your company, you will really tell people that it's not only oil industry, it's actually much more we are looking for underwater. As always, type your questions down in the down below box. We will run through the presentation and take the questions at the end, but do not hesitate to ask the questions during the presentation. I will collect all the questions and make sure we will get them answered when we're finished. But I think, Trond, you should take it from here to introduce your company.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to present Argeo. Thank you to all the listeners taking the time for us to present the company. We are an offshore company, that is correct. It does not mean that we are an oil field service company, but we will shed some more light on this as we go. What we are really about is an ocean space company, which means that we are collecting, digitizing, and providing information from the ocean for various types of projects. That could be installing an electrifying cable from Norway to Denmark, for instance. It could be scanning a pipeline. It could be looking for valuable minerals. Or it could be surveying the seabed before you install an offshore wind farm. So there's many aspects, and most importantly for Argeo is that we are not depending on one commodity, i.e. oil price or whatever it is. We have a complete workflow in all our verticals, making us a very robust company going forward. So please observe the disclaimer. This is basically cautionary statements in terms of what we are presenting. We are a growth company. We are building a lot of technology while we are also in operations. Management team, we are a very experienced team. Several of us with me here today. I have Odd Erik Rudshaug, our CFO, myself, Trond Figenschou-Krantz. We come from companies such as Schlumberger, PGS, etc., etc. Basically, what we want to say with this slide is that we've over 25 years experience in the offshore industry. So we've been in, we delivered services in difficult areas for complex projects many times before. So we know what we're doing, we know what we're building, and we know what the clients want in terms of our services. And then we have also built a very strong commercial team with Kim, who is actually in Copenhagen, Thomas looking after the North-South Americas, and Elizabeth, who is helping us marketing our image worldwide. So a few highlights since we are here. Successful, significant, oversubscribed private placement, nearly 80 million NOK, high quality investors from Norway, listing on the Euronext Growth in March and April this year. Ticker is Argeo. We have a significant market worldwide. We are looking at nearly $1 billion yearly. Market expect to double within the period of our estimation growth. So from 1 billion to 1.6 with a CAGR of nearly 21%. So we are actually estimated to surpass the traditional IMR and ROV market within the next 10 years. Just to answer the initial question, Subsea 7, Technip, Maersk even, mostly these are partners of Argeo rather than competitors. We provide additional services that they need to accomplish their work. So that's sort of that out of the picture. We are building a lot of high-tech technology. Some of the we will take some time reviewing later on. But we have 2 sea raptors coming within the next 3 months. We have the first snake robotics IMR inspection tool coming within Q1, which is a revolutionary inspection, maintenance, and monitoring system. Basically, a resident robotic system allowing us to do a lot of tasks offshore without using vessels. And then we are building unmanned surface vessels, mainly meant for the offshore wind market, surveying and inspection and so forth. We have a very good market traction, strong interest from clients globally, and we are also expanding the company both to the Americas and to Asia as we speak. We are a fairly modestly priced company on the Norwegian Stock Exchange for now. So estimated target price of 18 by the latest analytics reports from SpareBank 1 Market. But we are targeting revenues of more than 1 billion NOK over the next 5 years. So what is it we do? Basically, we are replacing traditional technology using robotics and a digital ecosystem to present the data for the clients. By doing so, we are transforming a whole ocean space industry. We are using robotic systems, autonomous systems with unique sensor technology, which significantly increases efficiency and quality. And of course, as an effect that we are electrified, we substantially reduce the CO2 footprint for the industry at large. So we have a saying: we provide faster, better, greener services at a lower cost. How do we do this? Well, we take the left-hand side, the square in the red bracket, and replace it with the right-hand side in the green bracket, in short. So, which means that we remove the vessel dependency, we remove the traditional ROVs, which are basically hunkered to the surface vessel using umbilicals, which means that they go really slow, they burn a lot of fuel, and we replace that with robotic systems, unmanned solutions, and digital ecosystems. So we are from 3 to 6 times more efficient, or faster if you like, than the traditional actors globally. In addition to that, we are one of 2 companies in the world who can image basically this coffee cup at 6,000 meter water depth. That's sort of the resolution that we are getting with new technology, which is now available for the market globally. So basically, back to the original question in terms of market verticals. So we have 4 main verticals that we have a vested interest in. I would say the cash cow for us is offshore wind and oil and gas, but we do not look for oil and gas. We make sure that all of the infrastructure that is put down on the seabed works optimally, and that there is no leakage, that it's basically providing a better service in terms of inspection and monitoring. So we can do this without using the same amount of vessel and thus the same amount of fuel as is being used today. On the left-hand side, for cable installations and verifications, electrification is a huge market being developed and growing. We have interconnects between continents at super water depths and long distances, where we have unique technology in-house that allows the robotic systems that we have to follow these cables to ensure that they are working optimally and the burial depth is as the client requires. We Yeah, offshore wind, it's a market expected to grow with a CAGR of 10% over the period. We think that is fairly moderate, to be honest. Norway is just coming into the play, and a lot of the market actors from offshore energy in general are moving globally. We have a unique technology there as well, in-house built, both for detection, foundation, and inspection going forward. And oilfield services, which is mostly for survey and inspection. That's what we do. We use our robotic systems to make sure that everything works as it should, and supplementing the robotics with the in-house sensor technology. Lastly, on the right-hand side, Deepsea Minerals, if we are to be able to meet our targets in terms of the renewable sector, we need access to rare earth minerals. There's a choice here. What we do in Argeo, twofold. We ensure that the whole world has environmental impact data of the highest standard. And then we assist in terms of appraising potential deposits. And then finally, we work in terms of characterizing these deposits and what they consist of. Here we have the world's only in-house built electromagnetic AUV system available for this market. So in short, we provide added value to our clients through proprietary technology that we develop ourselves. How do we deliver this? Well, we have these robots that we talked about. The Sea Raptor is something which is coming over the next month, the first one. We spent nearly 8 months building it. It's packed full of technology, sensors, Argeo tools, allowing us to image from 20 meters water depth to 6,000 meter water depth, wherever in the world a project may reside. It's modularized, so we can freight it in boxes, or it comes also in a 40-foot container with a complete large system, so we can drop it on deck on a boat and say far as offshore to image the seabed, or we can send it from shore basically to map an area of interest. In the middle, we have the Elim robotic systems. It's a Norwegian product, which we are tooling and adding to in terms of providing added value to our customers. It's a modularized snake robotic system. It resides, basically sleeps on the seafloor in a docking station, where it charges and it communicates with a global operation center here in Norway. And lastly, on the right-hand side, we have the Hugin AUV, which is a Norwegian product, well known, been working for many years globally, which is a trusted workhorse in terms of long-range imaging and high-quality results. So why do we develop technology? It's basically for two reasons. So we are trying to open new markets, basically allowing the robotic systems to deliver services to clients. That's one of the reasons. And two, where the sensory tool packs are not at a sufficiently high standard. So that's what we do in our subsidiary company called Argeo Robotics. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Argeo, where we have a number of very skilled engineers delivering on basically differentiating through creating value through in-house technology. And we put this into the robots that we operate, of course. Example of this is from our technology and IP development portfolio. We have a passive electromagnetic system. This allows us to follow cables, allows us to follow pipelines, even buried pipelines and cables, electrical telecom cables, and of course deep-sea mineral systems. And then we have an active system which allows us to detect UXO, for instance, for offshore wind farm, where we have unexploded ordnance from Second World War, for instance, which creates a hazard before you start manipulating the seabed. Buried infrastructure, cables, pipes, etc., and so on. And we can harvest a lot of different types of data from these robotic systems. I think the Sea Raptor now have over 10 different sensors, all collecting data every second. So needless to say, there is a need for an ecosystem to allow the customer to view all of these data with sufficient efficiency. So why do we work with the Elim system? Okay, so conventional operations, they are expensive and inefficient. I mean, most of the cost is related to vessel, and the vessels are huge, they are expensive. They are crewed by a lot of people, and of course, they have a large CO2 footprint. These are then equipped with ROVs, which is basically tethered via something called an umbilical, and allows them to then manipulate things on the seabed. Today, due to weather conditions and everything else which may hamper all of this, in general terms, they work for the client providing value about 45% of the time. So you pay a lot for these vessels, for the ROVs, and only get half of the time allocated, mostly, due to seasonal changes and steaming and technical problems, etc. So the idea, basically, is to use a robotic system instead of these vessels. So enter the Elim Snake robotic system. It's basically a robot that sleeps on the seabed on a docking station where it has all the tools and the sensors and can pick up tools and sensors based on the mission. So the mission is what the client would like us to do. So for instance, inspecting a cable, inspecting a jacket, a pipeline, etc. Many different tools that we can set this system up. It can grow from a length of 1.5 meters to over 6 meters with all the battery modules that we can tool it with. So basically it's a AUV, it's an ROV, and it's a resident subsea system. And this we are bringing to market early next year. So what do we do with Elim? Right, Elim for IMR can work for offshore wind, in terms of inspection and maintenance. It can basically cover about 80 square kilometers of area with one Elim system, thus allowing us to run the operation from the office or from a local operation center. It can get into confined spaces. It can do light intervention, so turning on and off valves and so on. Cathodic protection to make sure that things are not starting to deteriorate in terms of rust. Pipeline inspection, and a lot of in-house technology that we add to this. Now, understanding all of what we do in terms of robotic systems, we need to provide data to clients through a new ecosystem. It's basically a digital twin, so a digital representation of a given project in the ocean, of course, where we can add to it with more and more data as the project progresses. So basically, it's a time machine of information from the initiation of a project, like say an offshore wind farm, to decommissioning. And we can follow this using our robots and make sure that the owner or operator always have a time-lapse different signal available to see how the infrastructure progresses in terms of deterioration. And when we collect so much data that we do now, it's of course very important that the client is able to look at all of these types of data more or less in real time. So that's what we are doing with the, we call it the digital time machine. So that's it. A short introduction for now, but in short, transforming the market with high-end technology in-house, first move advantage with no negative legacy, and of course, attractive financials with a strong cash generation at the end. Questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Trond. I will take us to the middle of the screen, and we have a lot of questions, so let's get started. Of course, everybody is talking about supply chain disruptions. How can you get things delivered? I saw you saw a timeline with the Sea Raptor Q4 and Q1. Is that still your expectation? Is there a question in the audience about?
Exactly. So we had a very little disrupt in terms of the logistical issues, not more than 2 weeks actually. So and it's we have brought that back on track since then. So the first system is being initiated through what we call a factory acceptance test, starting in November, December, and we have actually hired all the crew, offshore crews, and they are given training as we speak.
So according to plan. And
Yes.
Maybe there's a question here in the oil and gas sector, the business model, which cost comes to projects. I think you elaborated a little bit on it in your specific area, but just to give an idea on how costly all this exploration is, and thereby the cost and the revenue projections for you. So to give a little bit enticement to see why you are such an important chain in the oil and gas sector. I don't know whether we can break it down. I think
So it's fairly easy. I mean, if you want to hire a traditional IMR vessel, a large vessel which is equipped with 2 ROVs, all the crew, etc., we are looking at everything from $70,000 to $120,000 per day, every day, every year, etc., etc. So, of course, that means that the total cost of inspecting is very high. Now, we can do mostly 60%, 70% of that workload using resident systems, with a significantly lower cost, of course, because we install the system and it can reside there for months, and we can operate it from shore. So when we remove 90% of the cost, which is the vessel, it gives itself.
Then there's a very direct question. You got 175 million in your latest. What is your burn rate? How long do you expect it to last? I don't know whether we are between quarters, so you can give an exact number, but just to give an expectation on your burn rate of what you picked up when you went to the stock market.
Yeah. Maybe Odd-Erik can...
Yeah, it's a little bit sensitive to talk about that now, 2 weeks before our Q3 report.
I know.
Our burn rate is not a lot these days. It is the office cost and the personnel cost we have. We have approximately 35 employees in the company. So when we are not out working on projects, the burn rate is related to salaries and the office cost we have. So it's limited.
So nothing changed in the plans when you went to the stock market, when you expected to be cash flow positive, and there's no changes in those.
We have a very flexible cost structure in the company, so not a lot of fixed cost. The cost related to activity and the projects and so on is very flexible.
I think that's a key comment there, because the traditional business model in offshore is that you have long-term charter or ownership of vessel, and sort of that burns a lot of cost every day, whether or not you have work for it or not, right? Which we don't. So we don't have that sort of rigid old type of business model. We have robotic systems, which we can strategically place around the world. And we can go to a very, very low utilization number and still be cash positive.
Perfect. Is there any, maybe talk a little bit about the patents, which patents you hold, whether you have some patents. I guess, you know, you are using, not off the shelf, but your technology, your AI and your imaging system is actually where, and the way it can do different things in different industries. I guess that's your competitive edge. So how is your patent situation here?
So what we do, right, we align ourselves with some key suppliers, you know, that we hold within great trust, and then we take their product and put our Argeo DNA in it, and that's our technology that we develop in-house. Only this last 6 months, I think we have filed five patents, over 60 claims, for different type of sensor technology and so on, that we use to basically become a leader in the industry over time. So we are building inside of these robotics systems our own sensor systems that allows us to, for instance, do things which has not been possible previously.
So it's primarily on the sensor side that you have the patents. Do you have any on your software side? Your time?
Sure. I mean, software is, as you probably know, slightly more difficult to patent. You know, algorithms, for instance, AI algorithms, you can't patent AI algorithms. It's something which is, but how you use it. So I would say it's more of interest how you make this work for you, right? So the complexity in the business model is actually what is more protective than a patent when it comes to AI algorithms and so on. And then we use a lot of open software, in fact, in our ecosystem. Yeah, I think the patenting goes mostly on the sensor side, which is sort of the really important bit.
And then there's I'm sorry, I haven't watched this TV series because it's in a Norwegian TV. There's a questions about this Elim, you know, everybody will watch videos. I will make sure to also put a link to this video, this underwater, living under the water robot that you can apply to jobs. I think people get blown out when they see this video. So there is a question here that it has been starring in a Norwegian series that has been. And what are your connections to it? You know, are you deploying your technology? Have you any connections? Have you made any contract for running this for companies? So if you can allude a little bit about this Elim.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is the Norwegian movie called Nordsjøen. The North Sea in English, right? And we were at the pre-show just 2 days ago in Oslo. So we are for now the operating partner with the development company and Kongsberg, and we are receiving the first commercial unit in a short amount of time. We are responding to global RFQs worldwide in terms of replacing traditional activities using this system. We have great belief that this will really disrupt how we do things, and of course, being a much more environmentally friendly method, we believe this will make an impact both in the offshore wind market and in the oil and gas market.
There's also a question here about the competitiveness of your software, but I guess you have alluded you don't have patents, but I guess it's the way you use the software to applicate to different industries that is part of your competitive edge against competitors.
Absolutely. You know, as I tried to explain, you know, we have so much data, you know, being acquired every second of a mission with these robotic systems. And what is important is how can we display this data for a good decision-making process for the clients. That's the main purpose, right? So we allow them to look at the different types of data correlated in time and space. So we are becoming a bit more complex here, but in general terms, it is a software which is desperately needed in this industry to allow customers to take full advantage. You know, mostly today this is being handled by PDF reports, believe it or not.
And I guess the seabed is pretty much changing every second, or is that just me? or much more than people think?
It is. If you take, for instance, the coast of Denmark, where you have, a lot of wind farms established, sediments, they are moving all the time. Something that you thought were buried and properly protected by sediments 1 year can be completely exposed the next year. So it's extremely important in terms of understanding how things are changing over time. And when we now have, we are at 6,000 meters water depth, to take the full extreme. We basically have 2 to 3 centimeter resolution. So the smallest object that we can detect is 2 to 3 centimeters. In comparison, if you had a surface vessel, you wouldn't be able to detect this office building that we are sitting in now. So we are going into a completely different era, honestly, and then to allow us to make the most use of such high valuable data, we need to completely shift the ecosystem and how we make decisions based on data. And that's what we are doing with the software.
And there's a very specific question here. Which plans do you have specific for your vehicles that you're getting delivered in Q4 and Q1 22? I guess Erik will probably tell you that that's a little bit sensitive information. I guess you're not going to give your pipeline full away, but can you give some clarification on whether you have some projects for 22 where you are seeing this potential?
Yeah, so we have projects for 22, and then in fact we start with several projects in the beginning, and then we have lined up. We are tendering as well on project, so it's a bit difficult to talk about the full project pipeline yet, because we have, even though we are a very experienced team, we have little history, right? So, which makes it very difficult to guide, which is sort of what we are getting into here. But the project pipeline is very positive, and we are developing it nearly on a daily basis.
I guess that's the best question you can give now. I totally understand. Let's look when you report. And as a Danish investor, maybe to understand you a little bit better, potential clients in Denmark, is that Ørsted? Is that Maersk Drilling? Maybe you can mention some you're already in talks to.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ørsted is a front runner when it comes to offshore wind. A company we talk to on many levels. We have more tools than what we have shown here today, but we would like to unveil them a bit as we go now over the next 3 months. But of course, we have specified tools for offshore wind, so Ørsted, Vattenfall, but now all of the traditional oil companies, they're also moving into the offshore wind segment. So this is becoming a really interesting market globally. And of course, what we are also seeing is that many of these companies, they go global now. They move away from Scandinavia, North Sea, move into Asia, to stateside, east coast of America, and they go from bottom fixed installations to floating wind, which means again that then we are looking at the water column moving from 40 to 60 meters to several hundred meters, which again needs new tools such as what we provide to be able to reduce risk before they are building it. But Maersk is also a big player, not only in the oil and gas sector, but also in the mineral sector. They have vessels, and they have been delivering services there already in the Asia Pacific market. What many doesn't know is that on the Norwegian continental shelf, there are large deposits, probably one of the most valuable deep sea mineral deposits in the world. So we look towards this with very much interest, and first what we start with is ensuring that we have environmental impact data to make good decisions on before we go to the next step.
And as a Danish person, I now need to ask, was that also something we delivered to you in this contract where you get all the oil, the Deepsea Minerals?
Yeah.
And I guess, just to elaborate on the wind industry, because we Danes are so interested, I guess what everybody is now seeing, that they need to be very competitive on the price. The prices are going down in the offshore industry. Is that something you are talking into to see this might be a new way to do it, but you need to be innovative to get your cost down for installation and such stuff? Is that kind of how you...
Well, yeah, it's the only way of doing it. So you need to completely rethink the methodology and the process of how you go about acquiring data first and foremost. And the way we do this is by using robotic systems for it. And then, so basically, our vision is no men or women at sea. The robotic systems are going to do the work for us, and we are going to treat the data and make sure that the client have good decision-making foundations as a result of it. So, of course, it doesn't happen overnight, of course, we know that. But we know that all of the companies that we talk to in the energy sector in particular, they have clear directives of going carbon neutral in terms of operations. And this, honestly, is the only way to do that.
Perfect. And there's a very specific questions, again, I'm not sure you want to answer, about a project in India, and there's also an amount I will not mention to you. Is there any news out on that, or do we need to wait about it?
This is a large project, in fact, and we don't want to talk about it yet. It's still a long process.
And let's ramp it up. I have already taken too much of your time. There's unfortunately a lot of questions. Some of them are very specific, so maybe we should wait with them in 2 weeks. I really elude the people for trying. But how far of your competitors do you think your technology are? A good way of rounding it up. I know, of course, I'm asking you, and you will probably say, but if you can maybe ramp up and say, how far ahead of the competitors do you think you are, and how fast are the competitors moving to you, or do they have too much of their traditional business to really move into your field fast?
Well, it's an excellent question. I mean, we can talk about this for the next half hour, actually. So one of the starting points of our presentation is a key sentence, no negative legacy. So basically, we have no debt. We don't have, 10 or 20 or 30 vessels lying around burning your cash. And additionally, a lot of old equipment that has no way to go in terms of if you wanted to sell it. So that's sort of a barrier, an exit cost of existing companies. But they have their specialization as well. So there's knowledge as well in terms of moving into, the robotics era. And one of the things, so the reason why we have a big focus on the technology that we develop is to basically buy us 2 to 3 years competitive advantage in terms of, new startups or existing players. So we believe that we can use that sort of technology advantage that we have developed and are used to develop. Myself and several of my colleagues here, we come from companies such as Schlumberger and PGS and whatnot, where we have developed cutting-edge technology all the time. And so we know that this is key to becoming a successful company. It's not about just buying, X amount of robots or AUVs and then putting them into service, because then you have sort of a price competition, which will be very difficult. So we use our knowledge basically to be competitive, and then allowing technology as it matures to scale as we grow and add to the fleet.
So how strange maybe it is for a Danish person, what you're telling me, 2 to 3 years competitive edge, and people are often forgetting that a competitive edge is actually giving the customer something they can use. A lot of people can make technology, but to give customers something that they can use in their day-to-day work and understand what they need is that
exactly.
a totally wrong assumption?
It's a perfect summary, because we solve existing problems for existing customers today. That's our focus. Not providing a solution in 10 years. The problem may not exist in 10 years. So what we are doing here is always look at what we can solve with our technology in today's market.
I think I will let that be the roundup. Very, very thanks to the audience for many super questions who got us through the case, and thank you to you, Trond, and not to take us to introduce your share, something we might not be so familiar with in Denmark, but at least this is a greener way of doing it that we like, and a disruptive technology also something we like. So thank you very much to everybody for listening in, and thank you for presenting.
Yeah, thanks a lot for all your time, and we will come with more news as we move along over the next months.